and so you have expiry dates.
Okay.
What this means is that once that date is reached, the product should not be sold or consumed. It has been expired, it should not be used. The best before date, on the other hand, gives you more time. Okay? What is happening when you have product have a best before date, and that's mainly juices and so on, drinks, you find that the manufacturer is saying that the product may be still safe to use after the date, but the quality may not be as good. For instance, let's take biscuits. Biscuits may have a best before date, and after that date, a month or two afterwards, you can still consume it. It would not make you sick, but the texture, it might get stuffy and so you know, it's not as good. The other products that would begin to lose their nutritional value. They may have a certain amount of vitamin A, certain amount of vitamin B or protein that began to lose their effect. So they may still be safe to consume, but the overall the quality would not be as good.
As good. Okay. Now there are certain foods like dairy products like cheese and so on. You may go to the local supermarkets and you would see that it just placed in plastic wraps.
Right.
And maybe just the price on them and so on. What would you say is the average time to keep these products like egg and cheese and so on and milk in the fridge?
Well, it varies. In terms of cheese, of course, as you said, the supermarkets sometimes they get them in big bulk, without the information, but then they cut them up so that they can sell it to retail it.
Yes.
Okay. The good about it is that these products, it moves up rapidly. It doesn't stay too long. They keep it refrigerated and they move rapidly. We haven't seen much problems with the cheese being sold in the supermarkets, especially because of the rapid movement, of the product, and also I think what you find is that although it moves rapidly, there is not actually a need to force anyone to put a best before date on that. But cheese is something you can easily know if it's going bad, because what mainly grow on the cheese is mold. The molds grow on the surface of the cheese, so you can easily see it.
Yes.
Okay, and then some people might say, well, obviously you wouldn't buy it. Some people, if they have it home, they might cut out the part of the mold and utilize it because the mold is on the surface of the cheese.
Yes.
Milk and so the expiry date are the best before date. The expiry date in the case of milk varies. Okay, we are talking about liquid milk, not the powder, which is so dry that it can last long periods of time. There's no water so that the microorganisms could grow in it. But the liquid milk, it varies. Some you have those that have been treated, what they call high temperature treatment. It's called the high temperature short time treatment. And usually these on the boxes, the expiry date is usually given.
Yes.
Others as the tin milk, the condensed milk, because the sugar here has bound some of the liquid.
Yes.
The liquid isn't as free as if it's not bound by the sugar. So again, that could last a period of time. But usually the manufacturer of these products would have the expiry dates written on them.
Okay. Now the next question I have is that sometimes you go to the supermarket and you would look for low prices because some of us are not as financially able as everybody else, and you may just buy something because it was reduced, and when you get home and you check it, you would realize that the expiry date on it is either close or it passed. What do you do in an instance like that when supermarkets are selling items that are so close to the expiry date, or let's say it has expired?
If the supermarkets are selling products that are expired, they should not. Okay, again, we go back to the difference between expired and best before. If it's close to the best before date, you can sell it.
Yes.
You see? But if it's the expiry dates, that again, that's food for infants and other high protein foods which have expiry dates. Even drugs have expiry dates. You should not sell them.
Okay.
You should remove them immediately. But if it's the best before date now, which is sometimes written as BB, the best before date, that's the time the supermarkets would reduce the price close to the best before date and sell it off. You should examine it, okay, because the price has been reduced, but examine it, because it depends on how the food was stored. If it was stored poorly, obviously it would begin to deteriorate much rapidly.
Okay.
If it also depends on the nature of the food. There are certain products that you could buy it 1, 2, 3 months after the best before date and it has no problems.
Okay.
Where the others would create problems. So I would say, one, you should avoid using that product as much as possible. But if you have to use it, examine the product and make certain that if it's a canned product, there should be no bulging in the can or rusting in the can, because that can indicate the presence of microorganisms, especially Clostridium botulinum, which love to live in anaerobic conditions, that's conditions where oxygen is not present.
Okay.
So you have to be very, very careful. Avoid it as much as possible.
Okay. Is there anything else that I would not have mentioned or asked you that you would like to let the public know about as it relates to standards?
Just to say that the Grenada Bureau of Standards is the contact point for the Codex Alimentarius Commission. Codex Alimentarius Commission is the international body that develops food standards. So what we do is that we receive all draft standards that are being issued by Codex.
Okay.
And we are supposed to comment on that, state our views. We usually send it out to different experts locally, and then send back that up to Codex, who would put our views in the standard. So we get a chance to comment on international standards.
Okay.
We are also the inquiry point for the TBT agreement, that is the Technical Barrier to Trade agreement under the WTO. And what that means is that any technical regulation, a standard that is made in Grenada, it doesn't have to be by the Bureau of Standards. If, for instance, somebody put out a new food law, we're supposed to notify the WTO that this new food law of food standards is out.
Okay.
And then they would circulate that to all the members to give the members a chance to comment on it.
Okay.
You see, they can comment on that and ask us to make changes. We also receive all other technical regulations that are made by other countries, even before they could make them compulsory, receive them so that we can comment on them also, to make certain that it doesn't affect our trade. So these are two areas that I would like to speak about.
Okay. That's good. What are some of the ways that consumers can get information from the Bureau of Standards if they are interested on educating themselves on what are some of the standards that they have to look for when they go shopping?
We have the Standards Information Program, which I spoke about earlier, and we have an officer dedicated to that. We have a lot of flyers and posters and all the standards in there. So if they can come into the Bureau anytime, we can give them information. Well, we have compulsory standards, and we have a few areas that we have compulsory standards. We have always been giving the information on the radio or the TV or so. For instance, we have a compulsory standard for bottled water, and that means all water coming into the country must meet the requirements of the standard. All water produced locally have to meet the requirements of the standard. So we usually take samples and have that tested. If it's coming from outside, it should come with a certificate of analysis from a recognized lab, and then we can let it come through. If we do not recognize the testing, we would have to test it and make certain it's safe before we permit it to come on the market.
Okay.
We have other compulsory standard, example the one for wheat flour, which we made compulsory a lot of years ago, about more than 10 years ago, because of the fact that potassium bromate was being used in the wheat flour, and it was found that potassium bromate, going back again to additives,
yes,
was carcinogenic.
Okay.
So we had to make that standard compulsory to protect our market. In Trinidad, they were still using the potassium bromate in the IBIS flour, so we were not permitting that flour from coming in to our local market.
Okay.
And there are other compulsory standards. Wet seasoning is compulsory, and so we test all wet seasoning coming in to make certain that the pH is right and other areas of the standard is right. Rice is a compulsory standard, and all rice coming in, because we do not manufacture rice here in Grenada, we have to test it, especially checking the amount of broken kernels. If there are broken kernels, there should be a certain amount. If it's too much, obviously it doesn't meet the requirements of the standard.
Okay.
So we have this information. We try to pass out as much as possible whenever we get a chance, just as now, to the public, so they know that, well, what we're looking for, and they also know where to find them.
All right. So will you be able to tell persons who are asking right now, where is the Bureau of Standards located and what number can I call?
Certainly, the Bureau of Standards is located in Queen's Park, very close to the stadium, close to where CCC is located. Okay, there's a sign. As soon as you get in there, you'll see a sign on the main pointing you towards the Bureau. We can be contacted at 440-5886 or 440-6783. If you want to fax us, our fax is 440-5554, and our email address gdbs@spiceair.com.
Viewers, you've had it. Mr. Simeon Collins, he has given you as much information as possible as it relates to the standards of foods in Grenada and what are some of the signs that you have to look for as it relates to freshness of food, or even how dangerous it is to consume foods that would have already passed the expiry date. It is very important that you follow these standards, because they will be able to guide you when you're shopping, and they will be able to protect you in the long run from any diseases or any effects from it as it relates to bacteria and carcinogens and all of that. So I would like to urge you to please go to the Bureau of Standards, get the information needed, and get yourself educated, because education is power, and when you're educated, you're able to make reasonable and very important choices. Thank you again, viewers, for listening, and thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you for your kind invitation again. Thank you.
Okay then, so thank you, and thank you again. I hope to see you again on the next program.